Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. For everyone who's new here, my name is Lucie Fink. I'm a video producer and lifestyle host in New York City. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing 16 of my all-time favorite books. I decided not to pick a specific book genre for this video, so I'm not just sharing my favorite health books or my favorite fiction books. I just pulled together my 16 all-time favorite books across multiple genres. I chose to do this because I know that many of you out there are very much like me, where you really like to read fiction, but you also have an interest in self-improvement and health, so I just wanted to combine it all into one perfectly packaged YouTube video that you could watch, create a book list, and then start reading. You're seeing behind me the beautiful bookshelves that my husband Michael arranged when we first moved into this apartment. As you can see, we have done color coordination. So we have a white/gray shelf, a blue shelf, and then like an orange, yellow, red shelf. Also up top, you can't see, but anything that's black or gray goes on the shelf up there. And there's also a shelf on the bottom for all the books that just don't fit into any of those categories, of which there are plenty. I know a lot of people have looked at this bookshelf and have commented to me that it seems impractical. I totally get it. If you don't have enough books in specific colors, that is totally okay. You don't have to color coordinate your shelves. But we actually find it very aesthetically pleasing, and it was not that hard to do. We sort of just put all of our books in piles and found that we had mostly black, white, blue, and orange books. And no, we don't buy books based on this. If there's any book that we want to read that doesn't fit in, we just don't put it on these shelves. And we have plenty of other places around the apartment where we store books too. Thank you so much to Literati for sponsoring this video. This is the perfect sponsor for today's YouTube video. So before I dive into my 16 favorite books, let me tell you about them, and there's an incredible giveaway that you're going to want to enter. Literati helps curate the best books for all types of readers, and essentially, here's how it works. So you sign up, and then you choose one of their luminaries whose book club you want to join. And when they use the word luminary, they're talking about top thinkers, change makers, or world leaders. So just to give you some examples of their luminaries, they have people like Malala, Steph Curry, Cheryl Strayed, Richard Branson, Joseph Campbell. I think they have 13 total luminaries whose book clubs you can choose to join. I chose Kelly McGonigal's. Her book club is called The Joy Collective, and because she's a wellness expert and a joy promoter, she seems to pick books mostly about psychology and science, which I find very interesting. So once you join your book club, every single month you will be sent a Literati box with a book of that luminary's choice for the month. So this month, being part of The Joy Collective, I got this book called Clara and the Sun. It's written by a Japanese author. I'm really excited to read it, and it seems based on the quotes on the back that it's going to be a very good novel. Plus, every month you get kind of like a custom note from your luminary, and a bookmark, and some other cool book accessories. So I'm very excited to be part of Literati, and there's an incredible giveaway that you could be part of right now. So this month they're giving away a free trip to Austin, Texas for one of you and a friend, and here's all that's included in the giveaway. Flights for you and a friend to Austin, a 2-night stay at a luxury resort, a spa package, $500 in cash that you can stock up on your at-home book nook, a 3-month Literati subscription for you and 3 of your friends, and there will even be 2 runners-up who will each win $1,000 in cash for your at-home book nook, plus a 3-month Literati subscription for them and 3 friends each. So to enter, all you have to do is follow Literati on social media. I'll put their handle here and down below, and then just leave a comment on this video and you are entered. So I'm very excited to share that with you. I hope you all go enter the giveaway right now, and I just knew that was the perfect sponsor for today's video. So now let's dive into my 16 favorite books. We're gonna start with the fiction genre because I always get questions about my favorite novels. So I have all my books right here so you're not seeing them on the shelves behind me. Number 1 is Normal People by Sally Rooney. I immediately followed it up with Sally Rooney's other book, Conversations with Friends, and then I was really excited to see that it became a limited TV series. The author, Sally Rooney, is really young. I'm gonna pop up her age here, but she is one of the best writers of our time. I'm telling you, for anyone who just appreciates really well-written stories that keep you captivated and that you can read through really quickly because it just sounds so modern and so natural, this is a book for you. Plus, the conversations that she writes just sound so real. It's like you're not reading a book where it sounds scripted. It sounds like you're reading real life words. Second novel is City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. This is the author of Eat, Pray, Love. I hope you've read that book too. That's one of my all-time favorites. This is one of her newer books. It's from 2019. It's a very thick book and it has 466 pages, but I read this so quickly. I could not put it down. The story is about New York City in the 1940s, and it really, as someone who lives in New York, I can tell you that this really conjures up the imagery of New York. I can't say what it was like in the 40s, but I really kind of got it through this book. So for all those people out there who are like city dreamers, you have to read this book because it will just excite you so much for what your life could be like if you moved to New York City and if you just go out on the town every night and have fun as a young girl. Novel number 3 is Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This book is about a person who kind of struggles with social skills. There's a little bit of sadness in the book, but I just felt like the characters were so well developed. It was one of those books where by the end you feel like you know them and you really feel for them. I also remember specific lines in this book that were just laugh out loud funny. So the writing is just really smart and witty. A very good read and a very quick summer read, I would say. And there's a quote on the front from Reese Witherspoon, whom I love, so you know it's a good one. And my 4th novel I don't have in person because I left it at my parents' house, but it's Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This is actually one of the best, most descriptive novels I've ever read. The writing is so beautiful. It is kind of very naturey and scenic. You can tell that the author either grew up in a place where she's very well versed in the language of nature and she knows a lot about plants and animals and birds, or for the novel she did loads of research and got every single detail to a T. It took me a very short time to read it, but because I was so invested in the characters, I actually feel like I read that book for a year. Like I feel like I was in the story for way longer than it actually took me to read it. Now we're moving on to my next genre, which I'm calling health/self-improvement. As you're about to see, the next couple of categories kind of mix together and you can sort of put the books in either category. Book number 5 is The Blue Zone Solution by Dan Buettner. I have another book here on my shelf that's just The Blue Zones by Dan Buettner. The Blue Zone Solution is more about the dietary and the food side of things, which I just found to be incredibly interesting, so that's why I'm listing this book. For anyone who doesn't know, I've spoken about this in previous videos, but the blue zones are the regions of the world where people live the longest lives. They have the highest population of centenarians, or people that live to 100 or more. And these are kind of considered like the healthiest hotspots on the globe. And Dan Buettner has done a lot of research to figure out what about these people's lifestyle is causing them to live really long lives. A lot of it is about community, a lot of it is about their activity that they do all day, and then a lot of it is about what they eat and the connections they have with people. So this book really focuses on the foods, and I felt like this was super actionable because, you know, you can't really, as an individual, do too much to affect your community. Like if you don't have a bike-friendly community, you can write to your local officials, but you can't really set up the bikes yourself for the community. But what you can do is choose how you're gonna eat and eat like you live in a blue zone. So if anyone's interested in health in that sense, this is a great book, as well as the other blue zone book. Book 6, Sleep Smarter by Shawn Stevenson. I have been obsessed with Shawn's podcast, The Model Health Show, for years now. I think he's such an incredible host. He does great research and he's really funny and has a very smooth voice. But I got this book as soon as I learned about it, and it's essentially a guide to how to improve the quality of your sleep. And as many of you probably know by now, sleep quality affects pretty much everything about your day and your overall health. So this book just dives into the best practices for the best possible sleep hygiene, how to get the best night's sleep tonight, and all the practical tips that you can do to improve your sleep and thus improve your health. His books coordinate nicely with my shelf colors. He did that for me. But this book is about, you know, using food to help yourself be as healthy as possible. So these two together will just be actionable, practical tips that you can implement right now. I learned so much from this book, and right after I read this, I went on to the next book on the list, which is called The Sleep Revolution by Arianna Huffington. Sorry to put 2 books on the list about sleep, but I think sleep is probably the most underrated aspect of health. I love this book because Arianna has such an incredible story about being an immigrant, coming here, starting the Huffington Post, completely burning herself out by overworking and not sleeping. She had a moment where she just completely burned out and had to figure out how to rejigger things in her life to get herself back to good health. And sleep was sort of her secret sauce to that. And in the vein of powerful women who I love, we are going to move on to Sahara Rose and The Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda. Has a little bit more of like a textbook feel than an actual sit down and read book, but I read this textbook cover to cover as if it were a sit down and read it book. And I learned so so much. So I read this back in my Refinery 29 days when I first discovered Ayurveda. And if you were to look at this book, like pretty much every page has things that I've circled or text that I've added. I took notes all around the margins as I was reading this book. First of all, it breaks down Ayurveda, or the science of life, so clearly and simply. It taught me about the doshas, and then it really got into some practical daily tips, like lifestyle activities that you can do to balance your dosha. Things that I now do every day, like tongue scraping, abhyanga oil massage, different types of foods that I now incorporate into my diet because I know I'm a Vata body type, so I eat a lot of warming, grounding foods. Moving on to the next category, which I'm calling mental health. Obviously, some of this might fall into the self-improvement category as well, but this is the mental health bubble. Book number 9, Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb. I got this book from my mother-in-law. She read it and then went to see Lori Gottlieb speak and then gave the book to like 12 of her friends. Lori Gottlieb is a therapist herself, so each chapter sort of hops back and forth between different sessions that she's had with different clients of hers, but she at the same time is seeing her own therapist and she's navigating through a breakup and her own life. So it's very interesting to have a therapist have the experience of going to therapy and reflecting on that. At the same time, the stories of her clients are just so fascinating. Some are really heart-wrenching and sad. Some are funny. Some make you really angry and you kind of hate the people. Plus, she's a really great writer. Also laugh out loud moments, really interestingly put together, and I would just highly recommend this book. Book 10, Icky Guy, The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life. This is a very short, small read. It's kind of like a coffee table book, but it does have a lot of text. Like this is like a sit down, read it book. I also read this one, like Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda, with a pen in hand and took notes all throughout the margins. Just to give you a little background, the word Icky Guy is a Japanese word that sort of means like your reason for being, almost like your meaning of life. But essentially there are 4 bubbles. So if you combine what you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs, the intersection of those 4 things would be considered your Ikigai. It's like your life's highest calling based on what you love, what you're good at, what can actually sustain you in a career, and what is helping others. And actually, the Japanese village that is being kind of talked about in this book is one of the blue zones where people live the longest lives. And according to the authors of this, they also live the happiest lives. Book 11, I should have timed this so that this was book 10, is 10% Happier by Dan Harris. This is a #1 New York Times bestseller. There's also now a podcast called 10% Happier, hosted by Dan Harris on ABC News. And in case you don't know, Dan Harris is a news anchor, similar to Arianna Huffington, was just kind of getting burnt out with work and not giving himself time to rest, and it all culminated in one live event on TV where he legitimately had a panic attack in public. After that, he decided to take some time off, give himself a break, and travel to India to learn about the art of meditation. And he dove headfirst into the meditation space, learning everything he could, seeking out gurus, and just overall calming his mind, body, and spirit. As someone who also works in the entertainment industry, I found this to be particularly interesting because I understand the hustle and grind that goes into that TV and media world. And I just love the podcast that has come out of this. He interviews some great experts. Book 12, and the last in the mental health category, is Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed. She's the author of Wild. You might know her from that book, but this is another one of those great books for people who really like voyeurism and like hearing about other people's struggles. I find when I learn about other people's struggles, it just sort of reminds me that my life is not so important. We can all only ever live inside of our own heads and kind of know what we are going through personally. But when we expand our consciousness and we let ourselves see what other people are going through, we just sort of remember that we are small and insignificant, which might make some people upset, but that makes me really happy to know that I am nothing, just a speck of dust floating through the universe, and my problems are not a big deal. This is basically a compilation of letters that she received when she worked as an advice columnist. She's now revealed herself as the person behind the advice column, and she called herself Sugar, so pretty much all the letters start with Dear Sugar. And I also saw this as a play, which was incredible, like really, really well done, and was basically just excerpts from the book. So I would just highly recommend this book for anyone who's interested in advice about life, relationships, friends, money, all that good stuff. We're moving on to the next category now, and we're gonna call this one the memoir category. And I only have one book in here for now, and I don't have it in person. It's also at my parents' house, but this was my favorite book when I was growing up. I read it a number of times when I was younger. I haven't read it recently, but I always recommend it to people, and it's called Running with Scissors by Augusten Burroughs. But this author just had such a bizarre childhood. His mom sent him to go live with her psychiatrist, and he has some crazy stories from his childhood. This book at the time when it came out spent 8 weeks on the bestseller list, so you know it's a really, really good book. I actually think it's a movie too, but I've surprisingly never seen the movie. And I will always remember that Augusten Burroughs came to my college to speak. I went to go see him, and I made a point to go up to him after to tell him how much I loved his books and to also ask him if he had any life advice for me. And his advice was, as a writer, you know, because I was in the creative writing program, he told me that in life I should put myself in uncomfortable situations as often as possible. Basically like situations that I normally wouldn't find myself in or I wouldn't put myself in intentionally, as long as it's not a dangerous situation, to try to always push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And those words of advice have stuck with me for years. All right, and for my last category, we are going to call it lifestyle. I know that's not like a genre of book, but you will see when I mention the books why I'm calling them lifestyle books. So book 14, I don't have this one with me, but it's called The Creative Curve by Alan Gannett. I read this book last summer, and it's basically Alan's research pooled together of what makes the world's most creative people creative. Like, what is a common thread in their lives that makes them excel at their craft, whether they're a musician, a songwriter, you know, whether they're a filmmaker, fashion designer. He covers some really famous, well-known, successful people, and he's had the chance to interview them, and he sort of finds these common threads that go through their lives that make them the best at their craft and make them really creative people. I found that it had some very interesting insights coming from someone who is a content creator who's always trying to push the bounds of creativity and make new things. There were some really great takeaways from the book. Book 15, Everyday Ubuntu, Living Better Together the African Way. I got this book from a friend of mine, one of my bridesmaids, and it was actually written by Archbishop Desmond Tutu's granddaughter. This book sort of reminds me of the Japanese book Icky Guy, but Ubuntu has a bit of a different meaning. Collectively, it sort of means the phrase, I am only because you are. And it's basically a concept that is found in like almost all African languages. And it just sort of underscores the importance of people and community. Sharing collective consciousness with others around you. It's just a very nice philosophy. And I feel like if everyone lived their life with the principles of Ubuntu, the world would be a much better place. The book is also very beautiful. It has a lot of beautiful colors and artwork in it, and the pages are glossy, so it's kind of a fun physical thing to hold and read. And moving on to the last of the lifestyle genre and also the last book of the video, book number 16, The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. Hal Elrod has one of the most fascinating stories I've ever heard. He was essentially in a life-threatening car accident, almost died. I think it's actually possible that he did die and then came back to life. Was told he would never walk again, and through the power of meditation and manifestation, he was able to walk again. His story is really fascinating. I did not do it justice in those 5 seconds, but he realized that he could completely transform his life by sticking to a regimented morning routine every morning that included 6 very important elements. So the 6 elements are silence, like meditation or just silence, reading, affirmations, visualization, journaling, and exercise. The book does encourage you to wake up at around 5 a.m. or earlier, but don't freak out. For people that don't want to wake up early, you can honestly still read this book and still incorporate the practices even if you wake up at 8 or 9. And you can break up the routine however you want. So you can do, you know, a full hour-long morning routine where you're doing 10 minutes each of these 6 things, or you can do like a 6-minute morning routine where you're doing 1 minute each of these 6 things. And that's it. 16 of my all-time favorite reads, things that have changed my life or just made me really happy to sit and curl up by the fire or under the sun in the summer. I am always looking for good new books, so please, please, please in the comments drop your favorite books down below. I would love to know across any genre what has been your favorite book of all time. What's the go-to book that you always recommend to friends and family? Give this video a thumbs up and hit that red subscribe button down below to join my YouTube family. We are so close to 300,000 subscribers. I'm really excited to hit that marker. I know nothing magical is gonna happen, but it just feels really great to have this family growing so quickly. And don't forget to go enter that literati giveaway that I spoke about earlier. I am so excited to see who wins the trip to Austin. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. I hope you liked this video. Can't wait to see you again. I have a really fun video coming for you next week, and I will see you soon. Bye.